this meeting of the Placer County Parks Commission to order. Thank you for coming tonight. At this time, I would like I'll just make this announcement. First time, forgive me here. Materials are provided to the commission and they'll be available to the public online during this meeting and the Department of Parks and Open Space office at 3091 County Center Drive in Auburn. And Ann, would you lead us in the flag salute, please? Over there.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ann. Would you like to do a roll call? Okay.
Here.
Dave Tucker. Burge Anderson,
Here.
James Rickard,
Here.
John Bergman. And Jeremy McCall.
Thank you. We do have a new board member or commission member. And Richard, would you introduce ourselves and say where you're representing?
Okay, so yeah, I'm Richard Capp and I'm from District 2. That's Miss Landon's district.
Okay, thank you.
Champy Landon.
So west of Roseville?
Oh, west of Roseville, yeah.
Yes, okay. Very good. All right.
Thank you.
Before we proceed any further, we need approval of the minutes. Or the agenda, excuse me.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Post. Okay, that carries. And then how about approval of the minutes? Have you had a chance to read the minutes? And are there any corrections?
You're in Tahoe, huh?
If there are no corrections, may I have a motion to approve and file the minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes from March 16th meeting held at the North Lake Tahoe Event Center.
And seconds? All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All right, and those opposed. All right. This is a time for public comment. During this time, the public may address the commission for items that are not on the agenda. This public comment period is limited to 15 minutes, so please limit comments to 3 minutes each person. If comments cannot be heard during the 15-minute time limit, then the public comment period will be taken up at the end of the regular meeting. The commission is not allowed or permitted to take any action on the items addressed under this item. Are there any public comments at this time? And okay, there's none in the audience, any online? Okay, seeing none, we'll go on. Next item, item 6, report from the director or the administrator. Andy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a lot going on and a lot of exciting things that I do want to share with you, especially since we missed our May meeting. So we'll catch you up on quite a few things. And I'd like to begin with some of the new folks we've been able to bring on board. We're very excited to have been able to fill a number of our positions that have been open for a long time. Let me begin with 2 that are here with us. Actually, Jamie is not quite as new. You got to meet Jamie last year at the dedication of the Forest Hill Dog Park, but Jamie is one of our supervisors, one of our 3 supervisors. Mark Henry, sitting right next to Jamie, just came to us from Folsom, so he specialized in their pool program in Folsom. Very excited to have Jamie here. He's taken a very proactive role in supervising our Dutch flat pool, sponsored training for our lifeguards yesterday, just really jumping right in. So excited to have Mark. We have 3 supervisors, and we talk about Jamie and Mark, and as excited as we are about the work that they're doing, I also want to mention Jeff Baggett. He's been around for a very long time. You don't hear a lot from Jeff. other than Commissioner Anderson, because he specializes in all things Granite Bay. But Jeff has done a tremendous job down there. He works very independently, takes care of all the parks in Granite Bay and Loomis, has done a lot of the work in reseeding them or putting in the Bermuda grass that's saving tons and tons of water down there. So those three are our three supervisors, Jamie, Mark, and Jeff. We give a shout out to all of them because we're very excited. Two new Parks and Grounds workers that we were just able to bring on full time, Nick Johnson and Andrew Cepeda. We will try to get them to one of the meetings so you can meet them in person within the next year or so. And then another who was going to be here tonight and had something come up, Sean Johnson. I was very excited. A couple of months ago, Ted Rell took the position of senior project manager. So previously, Ted and Lisa had kind of 1 foot in the land development world, working with developers, 1 foot in our capital improvement world. And as that capital improvement world coming out of our Park and Trail Master Plan is expanding rapidly, Ted is able to specialize now in the capital projects. And we were just able to backfill our planner position with Sean, who has been in community development. He was part of the counter staff right here in this building. So he's very familiar with the permitting and the land development process. Excited to have Sean. He's going to be specializing in all of the land development projects going on. So very happy to have those. That's just a huge boon to our division, having those 5 positions filled. And then I wanted to bring you up to speed on some of the happenings at the board since our last meeting. We will officially become part of a new department on July 27th. The name of the department will be the Department of Agriculture, Parks, and Natural Resources. And under that department, we will be the Division of Parks, Trails, and Open Space. I know, right? We're having to get larger hats just for. So the department is Agriculture, Parks, and Natural Resources. And under that, we will be the Division of Parks, Trails, and Open Space. We were never thrilled about the Department of Parks and Open Space just because of the acronym, but so we're a little happy to get a change there. So that will be happening. Our director is Josh Hunsinger. Josh just left for Canada on vacation, so he wasn't able to be here tonight, but you should probably see Josh again in September, I would expect. Next on the list, the Board of Supervisors approved your recommendation for funding of $750,000 for North Tahoe Public Utility District for their court project. You made the recommendation in Tahoe in March. The board approved that recommendation on April 18th. They promptly went out to bid. They opened bids and discovered that the bids were $1 million over estimate. Their board was able to find the money. They were not able to do the post-stress concrete the way they wanted to. That was an alternate that they had to remove, but they are going to be able to do the courts this year. So they will be under construction. Next, on May 9th, I think we've reported to the commission one of the kind of new lines of business that we've gotten into over the last 3 years was an initiative for our staff to take on the vegetation management on all county properties that need vegetation management for defensible space compliance, for just general wildfire risk reduction. There's about 135 properties the county owns. Those include some parks, but a lot of property that's just miscellaneous property and has nothing to do with parks. As we got going on that work, and Casey Lyons, our senior supervisor, has gotten us almost halfway through that initiative over the last couple of years. The California Tahoe Conservancy found out about our work. They reached out to us and said, we've got state money for wildfire work. We see what you're doing. You're actually getting stuff done on the ground. Can we help you? And so on May 9th, the board approved a grant agreement with California Tahoe Conservancy for $658,457 to support the work in the Tahoe Basin that we're doing. So that'll be a boon to all the work up there. On July 11th, we did approve an annexation of 22 new lots within the Saber City subdivision. There is a zone of benefit down there. I think it's zone of benefit 11. Is that? Or drawing a blank on the number. It's an older one.
For Saber City?
Yeah.
Yeah, zone of benefit 11.
So the Saber City Park has about quarter to a half acre of active amenities within it, a court, a playground, shade structure. And around that was an open space area, and we just mowed it once a year. Saber City Development is an older neighborhood. It's off of PFE Road in West Roseville. The county surplus that excess open space for the express purpose of encouraging affordable housing. And so that was picked up by a developer. It was subdivided into 22 new lots. There's, I think, 240 units within that subdivision today. So those will be, I believe, deed restricted affordable housing units. And with that, they've annexed into our zone of benefit to help pay for maintenance of the park, which is great because it's an old zone and it doesn't have any cost of living increase to it. So if we get a chance to tour West Placer, that's a destination we should take a look at. I think that's all I had.
Thank you, Andy.
Andy,
Yes.
and could you talk about the Bear River and the fuel management that's going on? That I was at the WACMAC last night, and Supervisor Montgomery mentioned that you have gotten some money to, or I guess Cal Division of Forestry is doing some fuel management on the Tree Pros Shaded Fuel Break.
Correct. So the Bear River Campground that was managed by Placer County since the 1960s. The agreement with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife expired last year. We entered into a new memorandum of understanding that put more responsibility for overall land management back onto the Department of Fish and Wildlife. We still have a ranger presence up there. We still support day use at Bear River Campground. There is no overnight camping there as of right now. At some point, hopefully there will be a long-term management plan that the state will engage in, and we'll figure out what the long-term vision for that property is. But right now we're taking care of day use oversight, and the state has stepped directly into vegetation management. So they've contracted with some of our contractors. They brought their own money to the table, and they're doing about a 5-acre shaded fuel break near the former group campsite as we speak. That's going on this week. So yeah, it's great to have that partnership stepping up, seeing the state take an interest in the property and invest in it.
Yeah, I was out there today, and I must have been 25, 30 cars parked. The day users that want to go into the river park at the main lot there, restrooms look good, restrooms open. The miners are at the far end, the upper end, and that restroom is open too. The only other one, the one that closes, the one in the old campground. And I sure wish we could use that for something, maybe create a parking lot and then put back picnic tables, and then have it be able to gate it, maybe at the old, the restroom or something, because it just seems to be a beautiful area in the trees, and, nobody really uses it, so.
That's kind of midway between the two entrance areas.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Right.
Yeah, we're talking about that actively right now. We've heard some other requests for that. We've talked with the state about it. We just kind of need to get together on a plan, and we have talked about pushing back some of the boulders in there and putting in some picnic areas.
Yeah, it looks good, not much trash. Looks like the signs are all up and there's no motorized action anymore, so great. Thank you.
Any other commissioners have questions for Andy? Okay, thank you. Move on to the park dedication and fund analysis reports.
So you have a report within your packet, and I am also going to bring up a report that's slightly different than the one you have in your packet. And I'll explain the difference. So in speaking to the chair, Commissioner Bergman, who let me know the other day he would be flying in from Boston tonight, and that's why he's not able to be here. Let me find my copy of it. Commissioner Bergman requested that we have some way within this monthly report to get an idea of how fast these zones are growing. So the report you have in your packet, it shows every one of those columns except for the one that's shaded. So you see the cash balance that's there today. And then you see the net balance available. Depending on what projects have come up and drawn out of those accounts, it's really impossible to see the rate of growth. And so he asked that we put some thought into how to see the rate of growth. And so this is an infancy of an idea, and I think we'll develop it over time, and I want to get your thoughts on it. But at least what we did, the idea there, the fee revenue from fiscal year 21, 22, it only goes back 1 year. Maybe we can even go back further and do some averaging. But to give you an idea of how much revenue is coming in the preceding fiscal year. So you have an idea in making decisions and your recommendations on expenditure, how fast these accounts are replenishing themselves. So that was just some additional data that we wanted to put in there. The idea was just talked about a couple of days ago, so it wasn't fully developed, but I'd like your thoughts on how we could better give your commission an idea of rates of growth. So you know the impact on spending money and how you expect it to replenish. You can see in there that we're seeing across the entire, all 16 park fee areas, they are growing pretty healthy.
One more than that.
And we do have some projects ourselves that we expect to be packaging together and bringing before you within the next couple of meetings. The Loomis Basin Park needs some drainage and parking lot work. We had to remove a playground at the Applegate Park, and we'd like to use some of the funds in that account to put in a new playground. So those are just a couple of the projects in our mind that should be coming forward.
Okay. Andy, does this fee revenue include landscape and lighting districts?
So it does not. This is all one-time fees paid at the time of land division and building permit, and the
Okay.
intent is for one-time expenditures, so capital expenditures.
Okay,
Lighting in landscape district is an annual revenue source,
Okay.
property tax-based annual revenue source, and not included here.
so then we're looking at apples and apples every year then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I will draw your attention to the final item tonight on your agenda, which is our intent. We have been funded by the Board of Supervisors to redo our fee program. To do that, it requires a technical, what they call a nexus report. That's built into the law. We have not updated our program and looked at we haven't looked at the program since 2004. So our intent was, once the Park and Trail Master Plan was finished and we have a new capital improvement list and know more about where we're going to be in the next 30 years and how to price it, that we would then take another look at the fee program. So the program is collected today. We do intend to update that this year.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on, we have item 8, which is information item. We have 2, and the first one is on Hidden Falls, the expansion project. Is that you, Lisa?
That would be me. So actually, I'm gonna tag team with Andy and I'll hand the clicker back to him at the end, but so yeah, we just wanted to give you an update of what's been going on and where we're at now and where we're headed. So this first slide is just to kind of give you an idea of right now, since in the last 20 years, the county, in conjunction with Placer Land Trust, has acquired just over 4,000 acres. The latest is what's called, you'll see number 12, and I'll explain that on the next slide, the Roar 140. And I'll be talking about it also later in the presentation. But as you can see, there's been a lot of effort and time that has gone into this whole Hidden Falls Trails expansion idea and project. So this in front of you is the map of the Hidden Falls Trails expansion project. So Rich, for your benefit, this parcel here that I'm outlining, that's that Roar 140 that we just purchased last year. It is not in the use permit yet. And I'll be talking about that again at the end. And but these other portions, this is the current Hidden Falls. This is the Garden Bar property that we purchased. This is the Twilight Ride property that we purchased that I'm working on the construction project right now that is just being signed, hopefully as we speak, for the parking and trailhead area there, which will connect initially with about 8 miles of existing trails here on Placer Land Trust owned properties that the county has blanket easements on. And then eventually, we don't have the funding now, but eventually it will connect over to Hidden Falls. And it will connect all the way up to the Bear River. So this is the Bear River backcountry area. So
Which one
looking
is-
at this,
Which one is the Taylor Ranch? Is that the one you just,
Taylor Ranch is this one,
okay.
and this is Katamian.
Oh,
So this is what I was just referring to here is Hidden Falls, and the green are the existing trails, and showing the existing trails on the Taylor and Katamian. This is the 140 that was purchased last year. This is a little 6.282 acre that we have not yet purchased, but we are doing the environmental studies for, and we'll be bringing that later this fall to ask the board to include these two parcels within the whole of the trails expansion area. And what that would do is currently, as it stands in the environmental document and the use permit, we would come from the existing Hidden Falls area through this red line across these properties that we already own, and we'd have to, and over to the Taylor property, connect up. But that would entail these two very large and very expensive bridges. And through the purchase of the 140, we were able to relocate that trail onto that property and avoid both the environmental concerns and the millions of dollars of cost for each of those bridges. And so with this little 6.82 acre addition, it will just make for a better trail experience for the multi-use trail.
So were those bridges like the bridges that are already in the park? Those big bridges?
Yeah, big ones, yeah.
On that scale, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and so this would avoid, so we could come up instead from the trail system and build this and avoid both of these two bridges. So this trail component wouldn't be constructed. So this is so going back, let me zero in for Rich. So here we are, this is Bell coming over here. And this is the Twilight Ride right off of Bell, and this is the parking lot. And on July 11th, we went to the board and they approved the construction contract for that, the entrance, which will come off of Bell, and this parking area, and it will have, so here's Bell, the entrance, it'll have a ranger booth, and it'll have an access road with 20 equestrian parking spots and 54 automobile parking spots. There'll be a landing zone for helicopter emergency. There'll be a 12,000 gallon underground storage tank for water. There'll be a 2,500 gallon above tank for potable water. And there'll be a restroom and picnic area with ADA trail down and crossing into the Taylor.
Successful.
Oh, and yes, thank you, Andy. We did put in a well. It's right about here. We were very thrilled. We were able to get about 6 gallons a minute. We did have to drill down to about 700 feet to do so. But we did hit water, and so yeah, it's enough. It's over the amount that was needed in order to work, because all we have for water out there to utilize is the restroom. We have drinking fountain, we have some light irrigation. So yeah, we will be able to put in a flush restroom, which we're very thrilled with. So before we open it up, we there are several things that we have been working on and that need to be completed before we open the place up to the public. And one of the things is a draft vegetation and fuels management plan that we've been working with the Resources Conservation District on. And they've gone out there and they've given us a draft, we've given them edits. And that will be finalized before we open to the public. Also is the signage and wayfinding. So we've been working with the folks that live out there and, listening to their concerns about where they would like to see signage. And so we've put together a signage and wayfinding plan to not only direct patrons to the park, but to tell patrons where not to go. So like on Diane's Road, the other side of Kramer, we'll have a sign that says, okay, Hidden Falls, whatever the name is that ends up, it probably won't be the Twilight Ride. We'll be renaming. That's part of the exercise before it opens up, is we'll be renaming it. But right now it's called the Twilight Ride area. And so we'll have signs saying, okay, go this way to the parking entrance. Don't go in, don't go any farther on Kramer Road, those sorts of things. So, and then there'll also be signage within the park area we're working with the Land Trust, and we'll be implementing that also at Hidden Falls to show, so that somebody don't know, okay, if I have an emergency, I hurt myself, I'm on, there'll be mile markers on each trail. So they'll know, okay, I'm on Poppy Trail. I just passed mile marker 4 and I need some help. That way, emergency medical services can get to them more quickly, and it will be better for everyone. We're also working on an emergency access and communication plan with CAL FIRE, Sheriff's Department, so that one of the things that the folks wanted that live out there is, okay, how do we get out of here? What's the safest route? And we've talked with CAL FIRE, and we will, they don't put together a plan. This is where you go. And you don't put that into one plan, because each incident is incident specific. So you don't want to, so they provide a command center, and they would inform the people that live out there, okay, there's a fire on X road, and they would direct them. They would come on site and they direct them out in the manner they think is best. And lastly, we're working with the Land Trust on a memorandum of understanding so that we can figure out, okay, who's doing what? They're going to be taking care of some things. We're going to be taking care of some things, designing trail systems. And like I said, working on signage so that we have a cohesive system out there. Management after public opening. So just like at Hidden Falls, we'll have rangers available. We'll have the same hours as Hidden Falls. And we will require the only caveat with the reservations is at the beginning, we will, until we find out what the usage patterns are out there, we're going to require reservations 7 days a week, whereas Hidden Falls is just weekends and holidays and special use days. Well, until we figure out, when people are coming and how many are coming, we're going to require reservations 7 days a week. So that could be a few weeks. It could be a month. We don't know, it's one of those adaptive management things, is once we get the pattern starts setting up, we'll know, okay, this is when we need reservations. And with that, I'm going to hand the clicker over to Mr. Fisher, and he's going to talk to you about the budget portion of it.
I'm not sure how many of you have had a chance to get the email. I hope each of you received it, but I did pass along a letter and response from Jane Wurst, who's with us tonight. You may want to follow up on some of that, but questions have come up over the last couple of weeks, really good questions about the nature of the budget for the project, what is included in the contracts that are underway today, and what's included in future phases. So we wanted to talk money and also the action of the board last week on July 11th had to make up a $1.6 million plus deficit in the project. And I know that we'd spoken to the commissioners, reached out to you individually on that, because the nature of the bid is that a bid bond only lasts a certain amount of time after you open bids. And so we did have to act to get our contractor under contract. We do believe that we received good bids. We received 5 different bids on the project, but our engineer's estimate was close to $3 million and the bids came in at 4.4. We also had increased permitting costs from what we had originally anticipated and professional service costs. So wanted to go through with you what is included in the construction contract and then what is included in the overall budget for the property. So the construction contract was just let and approved for $4,424,535. What's included in that construction contract basically is what was shown on that plan view of the parking lot and entry. So it's the entry features, the driveway in, the parking lot itself, the bathroom, the fencing that goes around there, the septic system, the water system. The well was built by a separate contract. You can see there that was we got our final price that turned out to be $86,099. We do have built into the contract, especially important on a unit price contract, to have some construction contingency. So that's $200,000. You know, if everything aligns really, really well, we may not have to use that, but you know, history shows that most of the time you do run into things on projects and we will need to use at least some of that 200,000 as we go forward. Fees for the project, environmental fees, are no small part of the project today. PCCP is the newly adopted Placer County Conservation Plan. We also have to have permits with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Regional Water Quality Control Board, or those other acronyms. And altogether, we're estimating those fees, and we have pretty good estimates now because we have hard quotes of $240,485. We are talking to the Placer County Conservation Authority about recovering some amount of credit in the value of the Roar property that we purchased. Those talks are still ongoing, so that 70,000 is not realized yet. It is an estimate. PG&E electrical costs we originally had included in the construction contract, but the design of those of bringing the poles down to the parking lot, we were uncertain enough that we pulled it out of the construction contract. Subsequently, Lisa's had conversations with PG&E, and we believe that that's a good number to bring power from the top near Bell Road down to the parking lot. The Helix is our consultant on the job. They've done environmental work on the Roar 140 purchase and the new alignment. They did the design for the construction contract, and they are still on retainer with us. They're still under contract with us to do some construction management work. So as they'll have an engineer there to approve submittals, they'll do construction material testing, things like that through construction. So we have not expended the entire $511,000, but that is the amount of the contract. Light rescue vehicle was a mitigation that we were required to provide, which is a kind of a dually pickup chassis size. I believe it's like an F550, is a 1.5 ton vehicle that can get into all of the ranch roads within the project. It carries, I think, 500 gallons maybe of water. So it's kind of a rapid attack. If you get an ignition, get it out fast idea, and it's able to transport any rescued people in the park. We do have an amount of money for some of the costs that are associated with the project. And Lisa, help me out. I know we sat and talked about this, but of course I draw a blank on some of those things that we're going to need to use that miscellaneous project costs for.
Some fuels.
Fuel load reduction,
Mhm,
some of the work on Taylor and Katamian property.
mhm.
We do know, like Lisa said, we're in the middle of working on an emergency access plan right now. We're in the middle of working on a fuels management plan right now. So we have not dialed the exact costs that we're going to need to invest on the Katami and Taylor property. But some of that 42,000 we expect to be able to invest. We do also know that the Placer Land Trust is offering to bring some level of volunteer support. And some of the things to be done on the Taylor and Catamian property kind of fall into more operational costs, like the fuels work, like the remedial work that needs to be done on the trails before they're open and things like that. So, you know, we're working out those final costs right now. So the total project budget, 5.875 million, is for this phase of construction. So it builds the parking lot and it gets people on the Taylor and Catamian properties. Future phases, which would be connection back to Hidden Falls. We've had estimates. Now those estimates are going to come down dramatically because of the not having to build the bridges now. The board did also, though, they've already invested in the purchase of the property. So that was $1 million. So there's some offset there, but there's going to be a net savings of several $1 million for not having to build those bridges. But that is an estimate. That is not money. So today we have $5.875 million in the project account to build the project. We do not have money for any future phase. That's money we're looking for. They're estimates to help us go out and target grants, things like that. We don't have that money today. So that comes later. And then I'll move forward to where the money comes from for the project today. So we do have a Prop 68 Trails and Greenways grant. We're under contract with this Natural Resources Agency, so that's committed to us. That has to be expended by the end of 2024. So that was one of the other reasons we wanted to get under construction. It will be a 2-year construction project. We have been able to meet with the contractor. They expect their hope, and all this, you know, changes over time as conditions, but their hope is to do the grading and paving work this year and come back and finish the rest of the amenities on site next year. The board had previously appropriated $659,000 in general funds. That did include the light rescue vehicle. It also appropriated park dedication fees, and those were fees that you made a recommendation on. Those were from the Ophir, Auburn, and Lincoln areas, $550,000. And then we had put together a funding package that originally our recommendation did include park dedication fees from Lincoln and Auburn. At the board meeting on July 11th, the board directed the CEO to go back and bring forward a follow-up item on August 11 that would put the park fees back into their accounts and fund all of that $1.639 million deficit with general funds. So the CEO had a good year last year and has been able to, they have funds specifically set aside for construction contingency. And the board directed the CEO to use those funds instead of park fees. So that's our current funding package. I think I said August 11, I meant August 15th. And then to finish off the presentation, I wanted to just cover some of the upcoming things that you'll see. Again, we'll be back at the board. This will be probably a consent item that'll come forward from the CEO's office, not parks, but it would realign that funding, backfill the park fees and fill with general funds. Some of the things that you'll see coming up in the fall, we are working on a purchase and sale agreement with the Rohr family for an additional 7 acres. That was a darker orange piece. We can go back to that map if you'd like to see it again. And a conditional use permit modification and addendum to the subsequent EIR. So we need an addendum to describe the new alignment through the new property rather than the bridges. And then the things we're working on that these will be items that do need to come to the board prior to opening sometime in 2024. We will bring a no parking ordinance forward for no parking either side of the driveway on Bell Road. The MOU with the Placer Land Trust would need to be ratified by our board, and then naming the park. So Twilight Ride was a name that was the previous owners used. Their vision was to let older horses come out and live out their twilight years riding on the property. I know we got a comment. Somebody thought that might have meant that we planned on keeping the park open into the twilight hours and into the night. It has nothing to do with management. It was just a name left over from the previous owner. We've used it just out of convention, but we have no attachment to it. I kind of expect, as we talked to the Placer Land Trust, one of the names we're looking at is the Big Hill Preserve area. And then as we get further north into the area near the Bear River, we've talked about naming it the Bear River Backcountry. So those are just names that are being talked about right now. I think we'll vet out folks' ideas before we get to the board, but those are a couple of the ideas we have right now. I think that's it for the presentation, I believe, right?
Any questions or comments from the council? Does the audience have any questions for Andy? I'm going to let you, please stand, come up to the mic. So it can be recorded. Thank you. And if you'll state your name.
My name is Jane Wurst and I'm part of Protect Rio Placer, and it's nice to see some of you familiar faces and some new faces. And I don't have a question, but I really wanted to let the Parks Commission know a few things that have been happening. When this was approved in March of 2021, it was decided that there would be neighborhood meetings, and the Parks Department hosted many neighborhood meetings for us as the neighbors, the people that are closest to the project and will be most impacted, whether it's by roads or noise or wildfire risk. And they had meetings with us, and they were very free flowing brainstorming sessions, and we were happy about that. And so it is our hope as the neighbors to the project that we will continue moving forward in this collaboration and communication. And we're hopeful that the things that will be good for the neighbors, which are road safety, wildfire reduction, protecting the environment and agriculture, quality of life, fiscal responsibility, that those are good things for all county residents. And so we can look at this as we're all working together for the good of not just our little community and this park, but for everybody. So that's our hopefully spirit of collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
Good evening, I'm Tom Mealy, I live local also. Just a quick question, with the acquisition of the 140 acres to bypass the two bridges, what will happen with the property that was acquired for the two bridges in that area? Will the county get rid of, or the parks get rid of that? 'Cause it seems like it's just kind of a little bit of.
So you'd be
Useless.
referring to the gray parcels below the tan color.
Yes,
pieces,
yeah, where the bridges were supposed to be.
Our intent right now is just to keep those in county ownership and inventory, and they would just remain part of the open space and preserved area of,
Excess.
yeah. No plans for public access now on those properties.
So it could be sold and we could recoup some of our.
It's possible,
Funds.
one of the, we haven't brought forward any kind of recommendation like that. Counties don't get to just put a real estate sign out and
No,
say for sale. It becomes quite a process,
Yeah.
and it is landlocked now, so it could be problematic to sell.
I see.
We certainly, we're always looking for what the
Sure.
best option is to do with property, but as of right now, the intent is just to keep it in preserved land.
Or possibly the parcels underneath there would have access as a possibility as well, offer it to them.
Yeah, and again, you can't just offer it to them. You have to offer it
Okay.
first to other agencies, then at large.
Oh, yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
it's quite a process, and you don't
Okay.
always get the outcome that you set out thinking you're gonna get in a public sale. So that's,
All right,
it's tricky.
thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments or questions? Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to the next item, which is an update on the Martith Valley Trail. That you, Andy, or?
That's gonna be Ted.
All right, Ted.
Good evening, Chair and rest of the commission. How it came to be, it's been going on for a long time. It's a class 1 trail that's going to traverse from Truckee to the North Star Resort. And a portion of that trail goes through federal property, which is sections called sections 1B2 and 3A. And with that trail construction going through that, going through federal land, the project not only has to go through a CEQA process, the California Environmental Quality Act, but also has to go through a NEPA process because it's federal land, and that NEPA is the National Environmental Policy Act. And as you know, these environmental acts are the general idea is to address any impacts that the project has. And so with NEPA, one of the impacts was to the tribal land of the Washoe tribe. And so the tribe got to insert themselves in what would be appropriate, what would be an appropriate mitigation to the impact of this trail. So that identified what they call a multiple property listing. Now it sounds like a transaction, real estate transaction, but it's actually a package that's submitted to the national parks to have it identified as a historic land site. And it's called a multiple property listing document. And what it does in this case is it's really interesting project where we hired a consultant to reach out to the tribe, to the Washoe tribe, and they compile a bunch of information, and a lot of it's from verbal history from elders with the tribe, and they put together this document and they submit it. So now it's a living document too. So this is kind of a base for the tribe. This is your land, and they kind of tell us, how they used it and what the historic relevance was. And then they get to add to it over time with other projects and other opportunities that they would have to comment. So where we're at right now, we finally got a contract to build. Oh, the other part of that mitigation was, along with the multiple property listing, was to build what we call a cultural kiosk. And the cultural kiosk is basically along the trail. It's going to be kind of a resting place with some interpretive panels, and you can learn a little bit more about the tribe and what this land meant to them. So we hired a consultant to start the design process of this and start the multiple property listing documents. And what I'm going to show you today is where we're at with that project. The multiple property listing, we just got the first draft a couple of weeks ago. And it's confidential right now until the tribe gives its blessing, but it's basically about 40 pages, a lot of interesting history, and it's in the review process right now before they move forward to give it to the tribe. They're going to get our comments if we have any, along with the Army Corps of Engineer, and the tribe will have their comments. So it's in a comment period right now, and then they'll send that to the what we call the SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Officer, California, and they'll review it and either come back to us or it'll move forward for the application process. So what I'm going to show you tonight is the progress we have on the Martis Valley Trail Cultural Kiosk. As you might know, along 267 too, if you are not familiar with this trail where they had the old dirt parking lot, this is right just south of the Martis Dam turnoff to go to their campground. There used to be a dirt parking lot there that you could access the trail. That has since been closed since June 9th. And now there's a new paved parking lot just outside, a couple miles outside of Truckee. Can't miss it if you're going along 267. Also, there's a restroom there. It's a vault toilet type restroom. It's a kind of a neat one where they're using dehydration technology to take care of the waste, and they scoop it out there. I don't have a lot more information about it. It's still being built, but we're going to look at the kiosk now. So this was the initial design when the project came, to kind of familiarize yourself with it. That green area up top is where the old parking lot was, just across from the Martis Dam Road turnoff. And this is kind of gave us our initial vision of what this is going to look like. And here was the first, here's the first draft of what they're proposing on that area. So you see that little, that turnout on the bottom. I know the graphic is kind of hard to see right there. That's where we're going to have the kiosk right there. So parking lot closed now, and this road will be closed off for public use. It will remain open for tribal elders with any mobility problems, and we're gonna put a little parking pad so they can drive down here, park and access the kiosk. Otherwise, you have to do the parking lot that's north of this location, and you'll have to walk to the kiosk location, which I think I walked it, I paced it off. It was about 3/4 of a mile from the parking lot till you hit this kiosk. This is the initial review. There'll be some interpretive panels looking out towards the valley. This is a little seating area with a roof that kind of resembles what their traditional huts would look like. And this is just some other artistic aspects of the kiosk. This is what it looks like today. If you've been on the trail recently, yeah, the split rail fencing is still up, and you can't see it in the background, but it was really interesting. There's a little mound in the background. I can kind of see it on mine. It's like right here, but it's real noticeable in the field. So if you're standing there and you're looking at that mound, we were meeting with the tribe out there, and they were saying that that is a special place for them. It's a special place of energy. It's not a burial site or anything, but they wanted that little mound included in the multiple property package, because it wasn't originally identified in the first round. So it's owned by, so there's a problem with this project where we're on U.S. Forest Service property, and all the agreements have been made with them, and then the mound is on U.S. Forest property. And so there's going to be a little bit of dialogue that we need to do in order to officially include that in the multiple property listing. But I just wanted to make you aware that's kind of an issue that's going on right now. So this site is where the kiosk is going to be, and that's what it's going to look like when it's all said, done, and built. And eventually the Martis Valley Trail going from Truckee to the North Tahoe Resort is or North Star Resort is going to eventually keep going over the summit along 267, land in Kings Beach. Then it'll hook up on the Lakeside Trail, head to Tahoe City, and then you'll get on the trail on 189 and continue into Truckee, and that will comprise of the whole Truckee Triangle Trail. This is the little seating area. Looks like they want to build it with some Corten steel. We still have to contract out to build this, but this is the design stage only, and the contractor we have to do this is going to get us to a permit ready stage. And that's it for my presentation. If anybody has any questions.
Any questions from the council? Any questions from the audience? I did see something similar to this up in Brookings, where the
Oh, yeah.
the local natives up there had gotten with the city and made something down by the ocean. And you walk through it and see a lot of things like, similar to this. And it was very educational. So, and very, very informative,
Right.
and a lot of people going through it. So,
Yes, it's definitely been an interesting project and a good journey that I haven't been on a project like this before, so it's definitely one to have in the pocket.
Thank you.
thank you, Ted.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, we have an action item, and it has to do with park dedication fee program. Andy, is that you?
Yep, that's me again. So I alluded to it as we looked at our park fee balances earlier, and you're familiar with how that program is laid out. And we collect today roughly $5,000 per single family dwelling. part of that at building, or part of it at land division, part of it at building permit. That's prorated for senior restricted housing, prorated for multifamily units. We have not revisited that program. The last study we did for the cost of building and fees associated was 2004. So the board did give us funding this year to enter into a professional services agreement with an economics firm that knows how to do these prescribed nexus studies. While we're looking at the fee update, we now have a new capital improvement plan that was adopted with the Park and Trail Master Plan. The communities have weighed in and we have a much better idea of what they want over the next 30 years. We're, you know, as we've gotten recent bid data, we're learning, not always to our delight, what it costs to build parks and trails now, but we have better data. So we want to relook at what we expect to build, what the communities want. One of the goals of the Park and Trail Master Plan was an encouragement to allow flexibility throughout the county. Our general plan standard today says the county as a whole, unincorporated Placer County, will strive to achieve 5 acres of active park per 1,000 residents and 5 acres of passive park per 1,000 residents, 1 mile of recreational trail. Our current Nexus study does not put a price on trail, so that's an area to look at. It's also fairly inflexible. The county is going to be taking on the general plan in the next few years. And so what we'd like to be able to do is say, what is an equitable amount that folks can pay in terms of a fee? But for each community, very few communities actually want 5 acres of parks per active, right, of active parks per 1,000 and 5 acres of passive. So in the east, for example, they may want way more trail and fewer soccer fields. Granite Bay, they probably do want about 5 acres of active park. So we want to be able to look at it with that flexibility in mind as we update the fee program. We want to look at new costs. We want to update, our fees are based on assumed occupancy, which is based on the 2000 census. So we want to look at new occupancies, how we base those fees. We also want to take a look at the fee areas that we have today. Are they functional? Do the 16 areas that we have today work for us? Should we look at fee areas just the way they are? Should we look at fee areas that keep some of the fee local, but maybe look specifically at a portion of the fee that does pay for regional parks and trails where it needs together? So all of those things, they're all questions. They're just questions. But as we launch this, we wanted to ask that your commission appoint one of you to be on the review panel for the consultant and kind of follow this project along with us, report back to the rest of the commission, and be kind of our rapid go-to person on the commission to just follow this project with us. So that's the action, is that you would appoint one of yourselves to help us with that exercise through the fee program update.
So you do not need us to act on the fee program itself, but to assign a commissioner to be on the committee.
I think we will bring regular updates as there's information on the fee program update. We will bring that to the whole commission. We just wanted for now to have one of the commissioners be on the review panel and along with the early process.
And what is the time constraints on that? One meeting a month, a weekly meeting? What do you expect?
So generally there is 2 to 3 meetings around the time that we receive proposals. So there's a meeting to get instructions, there's a meeting to confer back and forth with the entire proposal team, and then there can be interviews. So that all happens compressed within a month. I think there would also be probably one meeting very early before we release a request for proposals to make sure that the scope reflects what we want to get out of the consultant. So probably 4 meetings, I would consider maybe an extra 1 or 2 just in case.
Okay,
And
Thank
these
you.
can all be done online as well. It's
Okay.
usually via Teams or Zoom.
okay. Thank you. Is there any?
Well, I had a question. Where would these meetings be held? Here in Auburn?
That'd be in person in Auburn. Generally, they happen in our procurement office, which is across the parking lot over there. But we can also bring anybody in via Teams or Zoom as well.
Okay.
And then what time of the year is this going to happen, in the next couple of months, or?
You know, the board is eager to see this happen, and so we do want to get, you know, I'd love to see a RFP out on the streets within the next, say, 8 weeks if possible. We generally give proposers, say, 6 weeks-ish to mull it over and put their proposals together. So I would say, you know, if we could receive proposals into late fall, we tend to take a break in whatever the process is around the holidays, so it may finish up earlier into next year. But I would see, you know, hopefully some action around October, November.
I'll open it up first just to see for a little bit of discussion. Is there any desire of anybody that is on the council to be on that committee?
I can do it if we're talking about the fall. And I'd be willing to do it, yeah.
Okay, anybody else? All right. Do we have a motion?
I've done it.
We have a motion to nominate?
I was just gonna
Mr.
ask him a couple questions.
Yeah.
You've done-
Sure.
you've done this,
I've done consultant selection many times in the past, yeah.
Okay,
I'm familiar with the process, so.
okay.
Is this the part when you nominate absent commissioners?
Usually.
When you nominate Dave.
I wouldn't do that to him. All right. Do we have a motion?
Yes, I'd move that Richard Cap be appointed as our representative to this Nexus planning consultant position as our representative from the Parks Commission.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to do a roll call on that? Just because it's an action item? Thank you, Tracy.
Yes. Richard Cap,
Yes.
Burge Anderson,
Yes.
James Ricker,
Yes.
Jeremy McCollum.
Okay, it's unanimous.
Well, that will be one way to jump right in and learn the park fee program.
Right.
That's getting both feet wet at once.
Yep.
Thank you.
Way to do it.
And he's got experience. All right. We'll move on to item 10, which is commissioner comments. And if we can start down with Jeremy, do you have anything?
I think the plan for the Twilight Red area looks really great. I'm excited to see that. I spend a lot of time out on Hidden Falls right now, so I'm anxious to see what the new part looks like and see the timeline for getting it all tied together too.
Yeah, it's got some great views of the Sierras.
Yeah.
It's just lovely up there.
So thank you for all your work on that.
And
I'm looking forward to the Mars Valley Trail and experience.
I'd like to go back to one of the things Andy was mentioning about the Parks Department, Parks and Open Space Division taking over all of the maintenance of all of the county lands. Up in Dutch Flat, they've been mowing the lawn at the museum for the last almost a year, I guess. But we also have a public cemetery. And that public cemetery has been in existence since, 1850. And the upper eastern portion of that cemetery, public cemetery, is the Chinese portion. And we've had a lot of interest from Chinese community from the Bay Area and Sacramento coming up. Dutch Flat was very important in the building of the railroad. The railroad started in Dutch Flat. It was the articles of incorporation were done in Dutch Flat for the Central Pacific Railroad. And the first Chinese were hired by Charles Crocker out of the Auburn Chinatown and the Dutch Flat Chinatown. So they're very interested in what's happened in that cemetery. Ostensibly, the bones that were interred in the cemetery were sent back to China. But my understanding is it might have only been the males, the children and the females may not have been, and it might have been due to cost. Not everything might have been disinterred. So the county has come in and has cleared up the public cemetery, both the Chinese portion of it and the call it the European portion of it. And now it's not just overgrown and logs everywhere. But what the interesting thing is that with the Chinese portion, with funding from a lot of Chinese organizations and individuals, the Historical Society has raised over $4,000 to do a ground penetrating radiation in that cemetery to see if there are any anomalies, if there may be any burials there. And this is very important because to the Chinese, particularly back for the railroad workers, the main thing they wanted was to have their bones sent back to their village. That was like number one. And so we've had a lot of interest in the Chinese, and we had 55 show up for the parade on the 4th of July, and they went up to the cemetery and had this very, very interesting Taoist cleansing ceremony. They do ancestral celebrations too, but this was a cleansing ceremony because now they're starting over with that land. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see how it goes. So we thank the county for their participation, and thank the Historical Society, and of course all the Chinese folks who are pushing us and helping us. And that's what's going on.
Thank you. Mr. Cap, welcome. Do you have any comments?
I do. And so, I enjoyed the meeting and it was a very welcoming, and I look forward to having many more meetings and doing the consultant help over here.
We do have a fun job here and we work with good people.
Yeah.
I'd like to extend thank you to the staff. The parks in Granite Bay are being well used and they're looking great. So thank you. Bayside has almost got that AstroTurf field in. They're working on playgrounds and a pavilion of some sort right now that'll be open to the public for use. So I'm sure they'll reserve the fields like the county reserves the fields are very similar. So, but thank you. Looking forward to park tours in the fall. Do you have any plans for any kind of park tours?
Well, it does bring us actually to our next item. Which
Okay,
is
thank
the
you.
The next meeting, I thought we would bring that up then. Our next regular meeting would be September 21st. So I first wanted to see how that looked on your calendars. And then I was going to make a suggestion. We have been to Tahoe once this year. Traditionally, we've gone to Tahoe in September, and we spent a whole Friday touring Tahoe. Other than Martis Trail, there aren't any projects, I think, that would be ready for tour yet. I don't believe the courts would be ready. And you did get an opportunity, I think most of you, to see the trail last year, and you see progress on it. We do have some other things going on though, so let me throw this out. The Newcastle School, you recall that we, with your recommendation, the board appropriated 400 and 500,000, a little over 500,000 for the construction of the turf at Newcastle School. That all the irrigation's in, the turf should be down by September. So that's one. And then we have two brand new parks that are developer built that are going to be coming to us within the next probably 6 months. The Riola Vineyards development that we've been working on for a long time, just about probably less than a mile west of Dry Creek Park, will be coming online. Two parks in there, one that'll probably be called Glen Willow Park and one called Silver Sage Park. And you've had, very little exposure, I think, to those parks. We looked at the trail adjacent to it about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and kind of looked over at a dirt patch and said, there's going to be a park there. So the park is there. And our guys have been working diligently with the contractor to fix broken things and make final improvements. So I would suggest perhaps a West Placer tour for September of this year. That's a lot of things we'd like to show you.
Okay. That sounds like it would be prudent because we haven't been out. We've been out to West Placer, but it's been several years now. So thank you very
And the
much.
21st is a Thursday.
That's a Thursday, yeah.
Okay.
And we probably wouldn't need a full day. Maybe we could start at noon,
Noon? All right.
wind up with a meeting at the junior high school that we've had meetings at before when we've been down there. We'll check and see if it's available.
Okay. So our next meeting is going to be September 21st, maybe at noon, and maybe start up here in carpool.
Yeah.
Okay.
It might even be cooler too.
Could be. All right. Could be. All right. Thank you very much for coming. I'm going to close this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.